It's Walking Walker. Hey, the Walker's walking. How's it going, everyone out there? All over the world? Other planets? If you are from one, you never know. Anyone we know could be an alien. So, hey, yeah, it's just starting to get dark out. It's like 4:20, I think, right now. I took the Foz out for a run here a bit ago in the rain a bit, and luckily I got back just when Shelly got home, so she took a minute to dry him off and clean him. I felt kind of bad about that, but at least he got his exercise in. I wasn't running with him or walking in. I was riding my scooter thing, but whatever. At least I got out as well and got some fresh air. It's being cooped down here every day, you know, working here all days. You know, I got to get some fresh air and get a little exercise too. I got my daughter coming over tonight. She's home from school. She's going to university in Kamloops, BC, taking respiratory therapist. That's what she's going to be. She just finished her first semester and she did very well, and she's good enough to take the second now. I guess some of her friends didn't make the cut, which is too bad, but yeah, she's just a fabulous girl. Her and her boyfriend are coming over tonight. Her boyfriend lives in Parksville here, where I live. And they're going to come over tonight. I'm cooking, I got some chicken breasts up there that I soaked marinated in teriyaki, and I'm going to make some teriyaki chicken Hawaiian burgers. So I'm going to grill some pineapple slices, and I'm going to make some nice burgers, some fries, and a Caesar salad. So yeah, I'm going to do that in a little bit here. But I just wanted to talk about some some stuff. A friend of mine was doing a 390, building one up for something to do. He's an old faller, and got injured years ago falling, but he still does a little bit of falling now and then for private lands, and just has a little bit of a hobby working on some saws, so that's great. He ended up giving me a big bore 390 cylinder, highway, I guess it is. I think it is. Not sure, it doesn't say anything on it. Wait a second, let's look at the piston. Yeah, this piston says highway. So there we go. Oh, wait a sec, no, this is the piston. Piston says, yeah, it's a highway. Okay, so in front of me here I have a big bore 390 highway, a big bore 395 highway that I'm going to port tomorrow. It's a tight nickel, this one isn't. I'm going to see how this tight nickel one ports out, see how the chrome stands up as I'm porting it. Hopefully it works fine, so I don't have to spot the guy another cylinder if I wreck it. I know these aren't expensive, but we'll see how it goes. What I want to talk about is, you know, like right here in front of me, I have a standard 390 and the big bore 390, the big bore 395. I have a standard one around here somewhere of a 395, but we don't need to see that at the moment. What I wanted to explain was like the balance factor of the crankshaft. You know, like Huskies have been very smooth in your hands for years due to their anti-vibration system, and you know, and the balance of the motor. Years ago, I worked with a good friend of mine, Magnus, from Sweden. He worked at the factory, and then he quit there and had his own business as a two-stroke tuner and engine designer for some kart engine companies, and he built a lot of motocross engines, and he built like the fastest ones around. He used a lot of VHM parts from, I believe they're from Holland. VHM builds heads, pistons, cylinders. But he had a wicked dyno, and he was probably one of the best two-stroke guys in the world, really. You know, he just knew how to make them run and work right. So I learned a little bit from him, and me and him talked a lot about, you know, crankshaft balancing, port timing, and stuff like that. So that's what I wanted to touch base on today, because, you know, everyone's buying these big bore kits and aftermarket stuff because it's cheap, and if that's all you can afford, that's not a problem, man. You know, people doing their own work and hobbyists and you know, building their own saw for firewood or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't knock it at all. I don't blame them. Even myself, I've done a couple builds with aftermarket cylinders and flogged them off. And I told people though, straight up, like, hey, it's an aftermarket cylinder and piston. As long as you use it casually, it'll probably last you some good time. You know, if it's professional, you know, I won't do it. I've only done it once with a Titan Nickel 372 big bore, and actually that thing's been standing up good. So that is one there that I know that has been working good. But what I want to talk about is the balance factor. And actually, I looked on some YouTube videos a while ago, and I kind of know about it, about balancing a crankshaft. So, you know, like we have your regular crankshafts, and you have your full circle crankshafts that are now on like, or we're on like 357s, 575s, 576s. Now they're on a lot of the new auto-tune pro saws, like 572 and you know, 562, 550s, right? So the reason I'm kind of talking about it, because you got to think about it, you know, like my friend Magnus always told me 55% bob weight. Okay, bob weight is the I guess the calculation of the weights from the bottom to the top. So first of all, you'd want to weigh your rod like so, then your piston with all the stuff in it, like, you know, the pin, the clips, the rings, everything, right? And then you can do a percentage of what the balance of the crankshaft is. And I actually have a tool I made years ago. It's a steel kind of stand with some V-blocks kind of built onto it, where me and my dad used to actually kind of balance our own crankshafts. We used to use a company called Thompson's Machinery in Nanaimo, and there was a fellow there named John, and he was wicked with doing balancing and stuff. So we used to get our cranks balanced there for some saws, but we stopped doing that after Husky started building saws that were very smooth, and we didn't have to do that. So what the reason I'm talking about this, I keep saying that, eh? Because you think about it, okay? So let's for example, let's just check this 395 big bore highway here, which is the one I'm going to experiment porting on. This thing has been run. You can see the wash of the transfers and whatnot on this piston, and it's a pop-up, and it's a big bore. I didn't know it was until just a couple minutes ago. So you take here's your regular 395, you know, slop, 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 slop. Okay, loose as a goose. Here's the one for it. Okay. So let's just weigh these pistons now and just kind of think about this for a minute. Okay. So this aftermarket big bore piston weighs 147 grams. Okay. The 395 or OEM piston weighs 138. Okay, let me just go back here a sec. 138, 147. So that's 9 grams difference between these pistons, okay? So you got to think about that. When this heavier piston's hanging off this crankshaft, this isn't a 395 crankshaft, but I'm using this as an example, okay? This is a 372 crankshaft. So you got a lot more weight up here. So how do you know what the balance factor is unless you actually measure it, right? So that's a big difference, 8 grams. I can just feel it in my hands here, right? Okay. So let's check the other one. Here's the 390 piston. No rings on it, no clips, no wrist pin. 117 grams. Okay. Here's your aftermarket big bore. 122. So this one's 5 grams difference, okay? You know, which adds up to a lot too when you got it on a crankshaft rod and you know, you're reciprocating it back and forth. Here's the big bore 390 cylinder. It's not a Titan Nickel. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I guess maybe if I get an old used saw, I might throw it on there and just flog it to a firewood or something, but I'll definitely not use it for a professional. This is the 390 OEM one. You can kind of physically look at the transfer ports, and the bottoms are actually bigger on the OEM one than the aftermarket. Combustion chamber is slightly smaller on the OEM one than, or so on the aftermarket one, the OEM one, but whatever. It does not have a, oh, it does have a, it is a pop-up. So this is a pop-up piston for the highway one. It's not a huge pop-up, just very little. I don't know how much I would even measure. I should have measured it actually to tell you about that. And the pop-up for the 395 is about the same as well. Not much of a pop-up actually, and I really don't think that makes much of a difference. I think it's a bunch of hogwash if you ask me. This pop-up piston thing, I don't know, man. You're better off to have something like your old you know, pistons like that 260 I showed you yesterday that has had a slightly bit of a dome, right? But there's nothing wrong with flat top pistons if the combustion chamber is matched to use the flat top piston properly. Pop-up piston thing is almost like almost like a sales scam in a way. I really believe. Like, you really don't need that, man. If you build a saw properly, an OEM one. If I built this OEM 390, the way I do them, and I would take this aftermarket highway one and build it kind of the exact same way. It might have about the same equal power, but I guarantee you this thing will last you for like years, and this thing might last you a couple of months. You don't know, right? It's a gamble. So, I don't know. I really think people get caught up in this stuff that people read all over the internet and YouTube videos, like me and other people. Well, not me so much, but some people. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the way the flat top piston is. Some of the fastest two-stroke motors I've told you about in the world have flat top pistons. You know, motocross motors, kart engines. Yeah, they all have it, and it's the reason they have that because it actually dissipates the heat better. Where domed pistons or pop-up type ones or whatever will actually have heat spots in them, and not let the heat go through the top of the piston. I might be wrong, might be right. You can tell me that. I don't really care. But I just wanted to show you that, so you think about it. You're adding a big bore cylinder and piston onto a crankshaft that was balanced properly from the factory, and now you've got so much more weight on top. Is it going to be smooth? Is it going to vibrate different? Is it going to last? And that's what I kind of wanted to talk about with the 390. You know, the 385 Husqvarna. I know I talk a lot about Husqvarnas. I'm sorry about that. I love stills. Don't get me wrong. They've got some tremendous models and some of the best ever built for logging. But I just always been a bit of a Husky guy, okay? Sorry about that. I don't have to say sorry, but I'm just explaining that to you. But think about it. The 385 model, when we used them here on the coast, me and my dad probably ported, I don't know, thousands of them. And I'm not kidding you. We probably did. 385s were huge here. And they were just the greatest saw. They were smoother than the 390. You didn't have stuff like the top cover bolts coming loose and stripping. The little things that go wrong in the 390 we didn't have happen on the 385. And I'm guarantee you, that was hard to say, that it's the balance factor. You think about it. Now the 385 was balanced nice. It was smooth. Nothing came loose. Top cover bolts did come loose. Once they put the 390 cylinder on it, which is a bigger bore with a heavier piston, things started to come loose. The top cover bolts, muffler bolts, the coil bolts would come loose if you didn't Loctite them when you built the saw originally, which you shouldn't have to. But right there, you know, had the engineers come around. Like we had bearing problems too on the 390s, connecting rods breaking, and connecting rods actually separating around the main cage in the bottom of the crankshaft. Like the rods were actually breaking in half here and separating, so the piston's gonna bang 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 hit the head, right? And I was like, you either got a manufacturing process problem, or it's the balance factor. But I believe it was their manufacturing problem with the crankshafts doing that. It wasn't the bearing seizing up on each end. It was actually the rod breaking. So they were either too hard of a material, or something was going on there. But with the other stuff that was going on, with the cover bolts coming loose, stuff like that, that's vibration, man. And my good friends that have been following for, you know, 40, 50 years, some of these guys, you know, they could tell. Oh yeah, when they were running their 390, it wasn't definitely as smooth as their 385s. So to me, the balance factor that Husky did wasn't right, and that's why I'm saying when you use an aftermarket cylinder kit, big bore kit, you got to think about that. Okay, like you just look at this, the thickness of these two pistons right here. You guys might be able to hone in when you watch my video, but look how thick the side skirts are on this aftermarket big bore compared to this Husky beautiful Molly piston here. Molly, I believe, is the best cylinder company in the world for piston cylinders. They make Porsche, Volkswagen, everything you can think of. So that right there is kind of a conclusion of what happens and has happened in the field. You know, like a lot of guys out there or shops don't deal with professional stuff as much as someone like myself. Or I get feedback from loggers all over Canada here, Alaska, the Pacific Northwest. I got her pretty much dialed in, and you know, and I just want to say, try to stick with OEM, especially with work saws. But if you want to do some experimenting and mess around for your own personal use for firewood saws, no problem. You know, these are the aftermarket stuff like carburetors and cylinders and crankshafts are quite inexpensive, so it's, you know, it's obviously what people will grab if they're not a professional to use it daily to make a living, right? A friend of mine bought some 372 aftermarket crankshafts, and oh my goodness, man, like when you put this on some V blocks, it should be 0-0 on each side, right? These ones he bought, this clutch side was like out like, you know, 10 thou. So you know that thing, as it's running, it's going like this, right? Screwed up his bearings in his case. The thing lasted like, I think like 2 weeks. I was like, Dougie, you can't do that, man. You gotta keep with the OEM. It works fine. You think about it, a good 372, a good 390, a good 395 OEM. When I do a good work port to it and just a blueprint on them, they last for years. You know, unless the manager forgot to mix the gas or something, but or you smash the saw, which happens, right? You can't beat it. So I'm just saying, just watch when you're putting this big bore stuff on and whatnot. You know, and I'm gonna do a video once I get my tool there I made for checking cranks, or you can use a couple V blocks or whatever you want to be able to hang the piston off the rod, and as you spin it, it should stop in a different spot every time. When the piston's connected, as you spin it on V blocks or a couple bearing sets, let's say, it should stop at a different spot every time. If it goes like boop, like that, and the piston goes down, well, you know that area is heavier. Or it goes boop, like that, the counterweights are down on the crankshaft, you know that obviously the crank's heavier, and that's lighter. So my dad years ago actually used to do some stuff of balancing his own crankshafts. He would like grind the tops of these lobes here to lighten this area up. And then on some McCulloughs and whatnot, he used to You drill them and put different like tungsten type of weights in the crankshafts, stuff like that, right? So there's something to think about, something to do. I will do a video on crankshaft balancing, but check on YouTube if you're interested in it. Check it out now and look at a few different videos. Some guys got some great videos of it. Before this old redneck from Canada here does one, and then you can learn a little bit about it. But yeah, think about it. The balance factor, man. You know, people wonder why stuff falls apart and doesn't work right. There you go. My ultrasonic cleaner I just turned off. I got that little 260 cylinder that I took off that one saw yesterday in there, the piston and the cylinder, just to clean it up before I poured it. Then I got that carburetor off that old McCullough I did that video last night on, 797. I got it in the cleaner as well. And I've emailed the old saw shop, it's called, in the US. The guy makes, the fella there makes gasket kits and decals and stuff for old vintage saws. So check that out, theoldsawshop.com, and I'll see if he's replied to my email tonight here. But anyways, I better get up and get dinner ready for my daughter and her boyfriend coming over, because it's kind of the festive season, and yeah, get her all prepared so I don't look like a goof at the end here and nothing's ready when they get here. So Chef Donny, Walk with Don. Only reason I say that, I used to be a guy named called Walk with Jan, I think. Walk with Jan. He was like the original cooking show in BC here. He used to be a Chinese fella from Vancouver. I think it was Walk with Jan. Anyways, I'm just getting off topic now. I'm sorry about that. But if you saw anyone sticking the ice rubbing the road, your chicken burger's cooked right. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow on Hump Day. It's Wednesday tomorrow. Thanks for watching.